Most days it kind of feels like the president isn't willing to help anybody but himself, right? But hey, listen, sometimes you got to give credit where credit is due, right? I mean, Donald Trump does occasionally, sometimes, take time out of his day to help a friend in need.
This grass was the highest quality. It was given free of charge by Scotts Miracle-Gro, Scotts. And Scotts is a great company. They actually contributed to my campaign. So Scotts, I want to thank Scotts Miracle-Gro. It's I think the biggest grass company in the world. The owners are fantastic people, and I want to thank them.
Scotts Miracle-Gro. I'm not just the president, everyone. I'm also a customer. I mean, that was Donald Trump doing what was essentially a free infomercial for a multi-billion-dollar agribusiness that donated to help his presidential campaign. So Trump made those comments at about 11:06 a.m. this morning. And within a few minutes, wouldn't you know it, the stock price for Scotts Miracle-Gro shot up like a rocket. I mean, of course, the president is more than willing to use his status and power to plug a company that just happens to have donated to his campaign. But these days, that seems to be just about the only thing his influence is good for. Because it turns out Donald Trump is much better at selling a product that helps grass grow, I guess, than he is at selling his political agenda. I mean, last night voters went to the polls in 6 states to vote in primary elections and special elections, and several of Donald Trump's endorsed candidates were on the ballot. And many of those candidates lost. In the Republican primary for Wyoming governor, Trump's preferred candidate lost. In the Republican primary for Florida's 19th congressional district, Trump's candidate lost. In the Republican primary for Florida's 7th congressional district, Trump-endorsed incumbent Congressman Corey Mills was ousted by a primary challenger. In that one, Trump even tried to give himself a little mulligan. I mean, claiming that despite publicly endorsing Corey Mills, he actually had secretly pushed Mills to get out of the race. Sure, whatever you say. Now, all told, Republican primary voters have now rejected 10 Trump-endorsed candidates this election cycle. And just to put this in full context, those 10 losses are as many as Trump suffered in 2018, 2020, and 2024 combined. So we have even more data points that suggest Trump's political influence is waning, even in Republican primaries. And frankly, it's happening at a time when Republican politicians desperately need help from the leader of their party. I mean, take, for instance, the Senate race in Alaska, a state Trump won by 13 points less than 2 years ago. Well, last night, Alaska held its nonpartisan primary where Democrats and Republicans run together in the same race, and the top 4 candidates then advanced to the general election. That primary was essentially an early test of how well Democratic candidate Mary Peltola would perform against incumbent Republican Dan Sullivan. And as of right now, Democratic candidate Mary Peltola is leading Senator Dan Sullivan by more than 5 points, with 80% of the vote counted. Now, that result was enough for MS Now to move our rating for this race from lean Republican to toss-up. Now, heading into this race, Republicans made a very big deal about how another candidate named Dan Sullivan was also running, potentially taking votes away from the sitting Republican senator of the same name. But as you can see, the other Dan Sullivan is polling at just 2.4%, which is less than half of Peltola's 5-point margin of victory. So what is Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, doing to help Dan Sullivan in that race? Is he campaigning with Sullivan in the state he won? Is he tapping his massive war chest to help finance Sullivan's campaign? Of course not. Instead, his Justice Department is trying to help Senator Dan Sullivan by launching a federal investigation into the other Dan Sullivan. NBC News and Reuters both report that the DOJ has now issued grand jury subpoenas to investigate whether the other Dan Sullivan is part of some nefarious plot to steal the election. I mean, sure, why not? The man, the other Dan Sullivan, had just over $8,000 cash on hand as of the last FEC filing. And again, barely registered with voters. But hey, maybe if the other Dan Sullivan is under federal investigation he'll only get 1% of the vote instead of 2% of the vote. So that's what's happening in the Alaska Senate race right now. What about the other embattled Republican fighting to keep their Senate seats? Over in Ohio, another state Trump won by double digits less than 2 years ago, former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown is mounting a strong challenge against Republican Senator Jon Husted. A recent Fox News poll found Sherrod Brown leading Husted by 8 points in a head-to-head matchup. And part of how Sherrod Brown has made that race so competitive is by running ads like this one.
He's been called the face of data centers in Ohio. Why? Because Jon Husted spent years aggressively recruiting data centers to the state, cutting sweetheart tax deals and fast-tracking approvals, while ordinary residents watch their electricity bills explode.
We are here with Ohio Senator Jon Husted. He has a lot of experience with something called data centers.
Jon Husted. Who's he really working for?
I'm Sherrod Brown, and I approve this message.
Sherrod Brown is making Jon Husted the face of unpopular AI data centers in Ohio. And all across the country, I should know, people are pushing back against AI companies building big data centers in their communities. A Gallup poll from earlier this year actually found that more than 70% of Americans oppose AI data center construction in their community. And Sherrod Brown's anti-data center messaging appears to be working. Today, Axios actually obtained a new memo from the Senate Republicans campaign committee detailing how that anti-data center messaging is hurting Jon Husted. And they write, quote, more than any other thing in this race, data centers are the anchor hanging around Husted's neck. So what is Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, doing to help Jon Husted in that race? Well, let's check back in on that White House event today, shall we?
And I can say if I were the mayor of a town or the governor of a state and I had a chance to get a big plant in, an AI plant or a data center, I would absolutely want it. Maybe it can use a little public relations help. But if I were a governor or mayor, I would want that plant in my community.
Donald Trump loves data centers, loves them. He thinks everyone should want one. I'm sure Jon Husted was absolutely freaking thrilled to hear that as he is fighting for his political life in Ohio. Now, in Senate races all across the country, Donald Trump appears to be hurting his party's chances more than helping them, even in races that should be easy wins for Republicans. I mean, just consider the Senate race in South Carolina, a state Republicans assumed would be a very easy victory this year. After the death of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, Republicans were forced to hold a special primary election to replace him on the ballot. And Donald Trump decided to put his thumb on the scale in that race by encouraging Senator Graham's sister, Darlene Graham, to jump into that race with Donald Trump's endorsement. So how's that going? How is Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate doing in her quest to win that Senate seat for Republicans? Well, here she was in a primary debate just last night.
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? And if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security. But I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years. So I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're in the middle of a war, but national security, that's like just totally not my thing. But did I mention I support the military? Do you all feel better now? Remember, Donald Trump is the one who encouraged her to get into that race. He endorsed her. He bet on her. And the only good news for South Carolina Republicans right now is that Trump's endorsement is no longer a guarantee that his preferred candidate will win. Look, it's clear that Trump has not put a lot of thought or time or energy into helping Republicans win in these midterm elections. We don't know whether that is because he doesn't want to help or doesn't have the influence to help or some sort of combination. But we do know that Trump doesn't seem to be focused on or concerned about the fate of his party. Instead, he is spending these critical last days leading up to the midterms focused on the issues we know, and we talk about this a lot, he really, really cares about. I mean, here he was today talking at length, we're not even going to show you the whole thing, about the brand new granite helipad he is installing on the south lawn of the White House.
We got rid of the asphalt here, and this is granite. It's a white granite. It's called a flawless granite, and you can see the kind of granite this is. This granite has a 1,000,000-year life. It's a very strong stone. This is the highest quality stone you can get, and it's a very special stone. This is pure white granite, very high quality, and the highest quality. Come on over here. This is a path leading with the same exact granite, very strong granite. You'll never see a crack in this granite. This is a helipad at the highest level. It can land any helicopter in the world. They can have events on it. They can have people go there for cocktails and then walk to the ballroom. This is going to be used for a lot of different celebrations, a lot of different big meetings. And it's something we really needed badly for the helicopters, but we get a secondary use, and we can have some beautiful events here.
It's kind of like he's a real estate agent selling a feature on an expensive house. It's like, it's a dual-use helipad, everyone. Think about the potential for this space. You could use it to land your helicopter. You could use it to host cocktail parties. Think of the potential. Maybe it can even be a nursery for a little baby helicopter one day. Imagine. That is where Donald Trump's attention is focused ahead of this critical election. That tells you a whole lot.